Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wadhwani Viewpoint podcast. My name is Manali Shah and today's conversation is going to be all about startups and skilling. Joining us today is somebody who's had an incredible journey since starting up at the age of 16. In 2018, he was listed by Forbes as one of Asia's top young social entrepreneurs. Today, Samyak Chakrabarty is the founder of Workverse, an 8-year-old company that trains learners in 21st century core skills that will help them in the future of work and enhance their employability. Samyak, thank you so much for taking the time out to be here.
Thank you, Manali. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. And before we get into the serious part of the conversation, you started up at 16, but I'd like to know how old you are now.
33.
Right. So it's been an incredible journey. I'm sure it's come with a lot of learnings, which we'll get into now. So just to give some context to our audience, you started up at 16 by taking the concept of Model United Nations and youth conclaves to schools and colleges across the country. So what inspired you to start up at such a young age? And more importantly, how are those learnings helping you in the work that you do today?
So I'll start with a funny story. When I was in school, I was suspended for writing a love letter, and the school that I came from, writing a love letter was as bad as the worst crime possible. So I was obviously the most outstanding student in school. So my school actually was invited to participate in a Model UN conference. Ever since I'm a young boy, I was always very interested in world politics and all of that. So I really wanted to participate in the Model UN, but obviously the school didn't allow me to. So I wrote directly to the organizers, who very kindly allowed me to come as an independent delegate. When I went there, I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, right? Because as a young boy, 16-year-old, you assume the role of a world leader or a diplomat and debate on global issues. But there is something that I noticed. We were all children from privileged families and elite schools. The event was held at the Taj President with the theme being global hunger. So a bit of a contradiction there. So I asked myself, what if I could create this experience for the masses? Why can't a boy and girl from a BMC school or a tier 2 college also learn what it is to be playing the role of a world leader or a diplomat? Because as a part of the experience, you collaborate, you problem solve, you deal, you write resolutions. So a lot of soft skills, which is very interestingly what I do today, I learned through the Model UN platform. So my first business idea at that age was to build a Model UN platform for the masses. And it did really well. We grew on to become one of the largest MUN platforms in the country with over 10,000 students that participated across 3 years. We even had about 150 students coming from Pakistan. And all the students were from schools whose names you wouldn't know, colleges that employers don't typically go to. But I was so impressed and inspired to see the hunger, to see the passion, the dedication of these kids, because we took stuff for granted, but they really valued it. Share a very quick story. Very recently, I got an email from an unknown person, unknown to me, prima facie. And he said, I want to take you out for a meal to treat you. I participated in the Model UN conference that you organized 14 years ago. And I'm this young farmer's son from outside of Nasik. And I didn't even know what the UN is, but somehow an invite came to my school through UN. I participated. And today I work in an international policy think tank in Washington, DC, all because of that exposure. And I obviously met him for dinner. And wow, I mean, yes, I patted my own back too, but more importantly, I saw the power of exposure. I saw what it means when you take something to a group of people that are not used to it, that are not exposed to it, and if they value it, what they can do with it. And I would say that experience played a deep founding role in me concluding what my life purpose is and should be, which is democratizing access to exposure and opportunity, particularly in the context of enhancing employability, which is what the theme of what I do even today is.
Right. That's so amazing to hear. The impact that you've had, it has been incredible, which also leads me to my next question. You've been the founder of the Green Batti Project, a one-on-one mentoring program that connected underprivileged youth to positive adult role models. So, what is it that made you choose mentoring as a tool for social change? And did you have a personal experience that made you want to provide this kind of experience to other youth?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not going to shy away in admitting that whatever I am today is because of the intellectual privilege that I was born in. My mother's side ran one of Gujarat's largest textile mill operations back in the day. My father ran one of India's largest advertising agencies. So from both sides, I have been introduced to people, to experiences that showed me possibilities. For example, my maternal grandfather took me along with him to meet organizations like SEVA, Self-Employed Women's Association, that empowers 20 lakh plus women at the grassroots level. Through my father, I met heads of brands and heads of other advertising agencies. And obviously these conversations, these exposures shape your mind. They enhance your own ability to think, communicate, and be creative and so on. So that's my reality. And then if I just dial back to my Model UN experience, where I saw the power of taking exposure to the masses, I asked myself that, there are millions of young people with so much potential and hope and ambition, but they don't have the intellectual privilege that me or a few of us do. So how can I solve that gap? So I called up somebody I had known then, Shaheen Mistry, the founder of Teach for India. And I said, look, you have thousands of children from difficult demographics. These children may not have access to positive or inspiring adult role models, or they are not born in settings where they can get the kind of rich exposure required, especially today, to succeed. So I said, hey, I am where I am because of the older people that showed me the path and showed me dreams, and I learned so many skills from them. Why can't I kind of recreate that experience for the masses? And I started the Green Batti project, Green Batti being green light moving forward. And by the end, we had a couple of thousand mentor-mentee pairs. Recently, again, I was at a dinner, and I was approached by this person. And she said, hey, are you Samyak? And I said, yes. She said, yeah, I was a mentor with the Green Batti project. And I'd like to let you know that my mentee, that is the girl that she was paired with, and her friends, they're all employed now in the companies that the mentors had come from. So I tied up with a couple of companies to nominate their employees as mentors as part of a corporate volunteering exercise. And she said that, at least the group I'm aware of, mostly all of the girls, about 15 or 18, have been hired by the companies that nominated the mentors, and they're thriving in life. And that was a really inspiring piece of information that I got.
Amazing impact, and mentors are so important, whether you are looking for a job or you're starting your own venture, right? And now let's come to soft skills. Now, we all know that soft skills have always been important for hiring managers. But through the work that you do right now at Workverse, you are in touch with employers. Would you say that employers today, after the pandemic, are more than ever looking for soft skills, especially skills such as resilience or grit?
Let's remove the word soft. I think the root of the problem lies there. See, I'll put it more philosophically. In the age of artificial intelligence, what will be and what is already becoming the most important qualification is natural intelligence. Because tasks that are programmable, or tasks where there is certainty, where it is A will come before B and after B will come C, that is going to be automated because that requires little or no thinking. For example, more specifically accounting, basic coding, all of that, which is very process driven, will be automated. So for problems, for hard problems of the future, you will need these soft skills. Because at the end of the day, if you look at what are these skills, right? Like cut the jargon, which is essentially application of the mind in uncertainty. It is essentially what humans used to go from Flintstones to nuclear bombs, imagination, creativity, resilience, like you said, and all of that, experimentation. It is what makes us human. So today, managers are saying be more human and be less robotic, which in a way our education system had probably made us, because literally our textbooks were the programming that was happening to us, and we were expected to just reproduce that in its exact form. But today, for example, let's take a quick example like COVID. Whether you worked in a hospital, you worked for the government, or you worked in a private organization or a school, there was no manual and no one was trained to deal with it, right? Like you had to apply your own creativity, resilience, instinct, entrepreneurial mindset, and so on to survive and then come on the other side. That kind of, sets the context of why the ability to apply your own creative, emotional, and social intelligence is today more important than just theoretical knowledge or information. So yes, I think to survive and thrive in the new world, you will have to be more human and less robotic in your approach.
Right, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. And in your opinion, what are some of the skills that the youth of today should look to pursue? And these are, I'm talking about core skills, as you said, not soft skills.
I build on what I just said a while ago, is whatever that makes you the unique personality as a thinker, as a communicator, as a solver, someone who feels and emotes, you need to work on building that. See, resilience is a big word, critical thinking is a fancy word, creative problem solving is essentially, jugaad that we have innate in us. So I would say that look innate and train your brain to apply your most innate tendencies, because that is what is going to get you ahead. For example, I'll give you a very, very abstract example. So it's one of it's a lesson that we teach in our Workverse training accelerator. So here's the story. Okay, so there's this event manager, and he's working for the IPL, and his job is essentially to coordinate transport for players arriving from different parts of the world. So according to the manual, car A is mapped to car player A, car B is mapped to player B, and so on. But what happens is player B arrives before player A, but based on the time car A is waiting. So as per theory, car A is for player A, not for player B. Now this guy gets scared, saying if I give player B car A, what if player A comes? So natural tendencies, I call up the boss, and what do I do? But what we train is, hey, if you want to grow from beyond just a guy or person who's handling transport, who one day probably working in the management, here's how you'll have to think. What you'll have to do is, there's already a player and there's a car. Take that risk and ensure that at least what is there is taken care of. Yeah. And then you're at the airport to work for the IPL. There has to be a 5-star hotel within 5 minutes of the airport to obviously have fancy cars that are there waiting as cabs. You call the airport, you're on behalf of the call the hotel, you're on behalf of the IPL. Arrange a damn car, and you can't be afraid of what will my boss say, because your boss will be more angry at you if players are waiting because you did not go outside the book, than you just sanctioning a 5,000-10,000 rupee expense, which in any ways will be reimbursed to you. So I'm just giving a very abstract example of how you need to think in today's times. And most people are not trained to think like this, because car A, player A, car B, player B. That's how we are programmed. So I would say that the ability to take risks, the ability to think like an entrepreneur, to create a solution where none is visible or none has been given in the manual. These are very important, but I'm deliberately not taking names of skills, because through the course of time of building Workverse, I have realized that all of these center down to just application of mind and being your real self and what makes you human.
Right. I think that if you were to, term it as such, perhaps entrepreneurial skills is what comes to my mind when you talk about these things. I think that it's one of the most important skills that are really going to be valued, especially once we have AI and machine learning and those kind of
Yeah.
things, right? So, can you talk a little bit about how this particular skill set, entrepreneurial skills, is so important even as an employee? And no, it's not just for somebody who's starting up.
See, I think we need to understand what does it mean to be an entrepreneur. We often misrepresent entrepreneurship as essentially owning or starting a business. No, it's not true. Entrepreneurship is a state of mind. It is a state of mind that does not take no for an answer, that wants to push the bar. So it's like this, right? That I would say that Steve Jobs is an entrepreneur, but somebody who owned a conventional computing company, I will not name, is a business person. Steve Jobs wanted to push the bar. He said, I'm not selling computers. I want to humanize the computing experience. I want to add aesthetic to it. I want to add perfection to it. Now that's the mindset where it's not about money. He didn't do it because he knew one day he'll become a company that is richer than many economies itself. He did it because he wanted to push the bar in the domain that he was in. So what I'm saying is entrepreneurship is a state of mind that chases pushing the bar, taking risks, taking ownership. And if you don't do these things, you will, whether you are an entry-level coder or you are the CTO of a company, both applicable in both cases, you'll unfortunately become professionally irrelevant, because today how much you contribute to your company's growth is exactly proportionate to how much the company will contribute to your growth. Gone are the days where a coder cannot say revenue is not my problem,
Right.
then your salary is not my problem. That's the mindset that has become. Good, bad, right, wrong is a different conversation.
Yeah.
But today, an intern, an entry level, has to think and operate like a CEO. In a different degree, of course, but I'm talking more about the mindset.
Right, absolutely. That's such great insight. Lastly, what would be your message to aspiring founders or people who've just started out?
I think a simple message: don't start to exit, and create value and not valuations. What I'm extremely concerned about, and I'm going to take the risk of using the word cocaine capitalism, where there is endless supply of money that is still available if you seek it, and many VCs essentially think very, very, very practical, right? The VC who is representing a VC firm, it's not his or her money that they're putting on the table. It is someone's money come from some pension fund. So the founder taking the money and the person sanctioning the money have really nothing to lose beyond the point. Unless there is a strong sense of purpose of what backs the founder and why he or she started the company in the first place, which is not to make money, but is to create something of value for the customer, to push the bar or innovate and so on, or a problem that you want to solve. So, because the only thing that can, therefore, in a market where the person giving the money, taking the money, eventually, worst case company shut down, but neither of them personally lose anything, unless there is a very personal sense of purpose attached to why the company has started, and that is very important. So don't start to exit. Don't create value, not valuation, and have a strong sense of purpose that fuels the why of starting a company, because then you will be connected to the prospects of the company. Again, I'm not going to name, but you see it, right? Like there's a founders that raise billions of dollars, and they've been chucked out of their company, and they started another company, and they start other companies. So it's essentially like you're essentially widening the fishing net and saying, let's see which shark and what size of shark comes in my net. I don't really care about the fish, but
Right. Some wise and very, very direct words there. With that, we come to an end of today's episode of the Wadhwani Viewpoint podcast. My name is Manali Shah, and I'll see you in the next one.